Hi, this is Wei here, and I'm gonna make a video on how to make currency. And I figured I'd make this video for a couple of reasons. One, most of you are wondering how I got to the point where I can actually fund the stat stacker. That's the first thing. The second thing as well is, I want to show you how much currency I've generated so far. I have 79 div left. If I sell my stuff, I have some stuff where I've swapped out some gear pieces. If I sell the 65, the 40, I have a bunch of stuff that's just really expensive, right? And so I'm gonna teach you couple of stuff first on how to first make the currency to start the process of investing, and secondly, why investing is kind of important for POE. And if you don't actually invest, you're kind of gimping yourself. This includes some aspect of real life knowledge, because in real life it's the same exact thing. If you're not putting money back in the market, you're getting screwed, right? And let me break it down to you in like two different sections. The first section is how to establish cash flow, so how to establish currency generation. The second half is how to utilize your currency and make it work for you, right? This is almost like a finance 101 class. So if you don't like finance, well, at least pay attention to the first half, because that is just playing the game. Second half is more finance. So if you don't like that, then just skip the second half of the video. But you will lose, you will not gain wealth at the trajectory that most of the top players are if you don't pay attention to the second half, because that's where at least 80 or 90% of wealth for an exile is generated. All right. So first and foremost, how do you generate currency? When you start out, at least you don't really have any idea of how to go about farming, right? Especially when there's early access like this. So one, pick a class that can scale well, a build that can scale well for cheap, and do X content. Right, and that X content, if you were to push to a certain level, will be profitable. Right, I'll give you an example. So I did gas arrow, right? My first priority was whether or not I could do breach, and whether or not I could farm the breach boss. That was the two things I cared about the most on gas arrow, and I was able to accomplish that on kind of a shoestring budget. The reason being for that is the breach boss drops a 7 div glove, right? A 7-8 div glove, and if you can consistently farm him, generate the breach stones, and then use that breach stones to farm him, you're going to consistently make currency, right? So I could do that on a gas arrow build that would cost me under 1 div, right? So that's the premise of what my strategy was for this league, right? Focusing on building a character that was really cheap, that could do bossing and breach at the same time, and then farming for currency, right? Knowing what a strong build is kind of mandatory. If you don't know what a strong build is, you won't actually pick something that will help you league start well. And then when you don't pick something that will help league start well, you will, at some point, you realize that you have to pour in a lot of investment to actually continue scaling the build, or being able to clear the content that you promised that you were able to clear, right? Very few content creators will tell you this, because it's just too much, right? They won't say okay, you play this build, you invest this amount, and then you use this to farm this content, and then when you farm this content, this is how you would generate currency using that content. Very few content creators will go in depth about this. There are a few that will. Fob Guns clearly goes into in detail about this, yeah. So that's why a lot of people follow his guides. But most of them don't, and most of them will just tell you, I have a strong build. I look at my damage. Wow, look at me do one map that is unmodded. It's kind of stupid. But yeah, your build and how it works with generating currency and the content you want to do is all part of the same package. You cannot look at one part of this equation by itself. You can't say, I have a strong build, then say, okay, I have no way to scale to it. I have a strong build, but I have no way to scale to it. Then that's kind of pointless, right? Then I have a strong build, but there is no clear cheap scaling options. So even if I give it to someone else, they're gonna sit on it and well, I can't afford it, so it's a bait to actually play that build, right? So that's the first half of it. Generating currency is kind of like that, right? So back to the 3 main points. Figure out the strategy you want to run, find a build that scales cheaply for that strategy, and 3, execute that strategy, and just keep at it, right? All right, so that is generating currency. Most of you should be able to nail this. It's very simple, all right? I'll give you some suggestions of what currency you could do, generating mechanics you could do. You could do simulacrums, you could do ritual, you could do breach, you could just do mapping and bossing, and then use the map. Let's say you oversupply on waystones, you could sell waystones in bulk if you want to, right? That's one alternative if you haven't considered it. then you have the second portion, which is actually going to take a majority of the time of this video, right? Because making your currency work for you, making your money work for you, is not just a important skill in POE. It's an important skill in life. And if you don't know this yet, you have been losing in life all this while. And it is this: in every economy, in every player economy, there will be things that are assets that will increase in value, and there will be things that are assets that won't increase in value. They'll either depreciate or they will, you will get less out of them in the long run. And then they also don't scale with inflation. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you just made $100,000 windfall. If the first thing you buy is a car, you're kind of a dum-dum, all right? In the same way, like if you play PoE and the first thing you buy is like a weapon with just 50 DPS increase, you're also a dum-dum. And the reason for it is that thing will devalue in time. It will never get more expensive, right? If I had currency and I wanted to buy a weapon, I would only buy two things. I would buy weapons that are extremely cheap, that allow me to scale so I can do the content I need, so things that help me to generate more currency, or I will buy things that I know will go in value over time. So for example, if I found a bow that had like 2 T1 prefixes, open prefix, empty suffix, and someone was selling it for cheap, I would buy that. Why? Because in the future, someone's going to look at that bow and say, I actually can craft on this, and if I do craft on it, it will be a 100 divine, 200 divine bow, right? So knowing what to buy and knowing how to value items on the market and knowing how an item's potential in over time, what the price will be, is extremely important in figuring out your purchases, right? The first few purchases you go for not only have to, one, be good for your build and scale your build, but also two, when you ever decide to sell it, it's going to go up in value and you're going to make a profit out of it rather than make a loss, right? So I'll give you an example of one of the items I bought using this strategy. One of them was the Ingenuity helm, right? So Ingenuity belt. So the Ingenuity belt I knew was going to be strong for Gas Arrow. And it was actually the first major purchase for Gas Arrow. Gas Arrow actually at that point cost less than 100 exalts, I think. And so this was a 400 to 500, 600 exalt investment, right? It wasn't just a purchase for the scaling of my build. Okay, not this one. The one I had, I sold off already. But it wasn't just for the purposes of scaling build. It was also because I knew that the demand for this would be high. It is an extremely strong unique. It drops only from a specific boss, and not many people can farm that boss, right? And if you look at that, what else? You also know that there is going to be extremely high demand for this. It will be high demand because Archmage is going to 100% want that, and Stat Attackers 100% want this, as well as like any build that scales damage in late game 100% wants this. So if when I saw it at 400 to 500 exalts, I said I need to get this as soon as possible. Whatever currency I have accumulated, this is the number one purchase I'm going for, and I bought it. I just recently sold my old Ingenuity belt for about 24 divines, right? And 24 divines right now is 24 times what, 70 exalts. So 24 times 70 is 1680. So that means the amount of like I put 400 exalts into it, I'm getting 1600 exalts back. I got 1200 exalts as profit, right? And that is also and also it accounts for inflation, right? Because a lot of things went up in price as well. So even if you factor in inflation, it's still a massive profit. So making decisions like this is gonna help you you're making money work for you, right? So never ever keep things in raw currency. That's one of the like basics. Never keep things in raw currency. Always find things worth purchasing early, and always figure out when is a good time to sell them, or when is a good time to like like when figure out when is a like when people want this item. So I'll give you an example. One of the items I bought as well was a 300% quiver effect Widow Hill with 2 sockets. I wanted to actually use that for a second build. I was considering a second build, so I was gearing for it, and I saw this at 5 divines. I was like, well, that's relatively cheap, so I bought it. Then Rutu came along and said, I think there's a really strong build that uses that can use this build, and then he basically, all his viewers said, okay, well, that's cool, we also want to try that build. And some of them have deep pockets, right? They go like, I want the best, right? And that bow was literally the best option for that build. and I sold that for 40 divines. So that's 35 divine profit right there. If you're not comfortable with doing this, always know this: you will be at a significant disadvantage than other people who are playing this strategy. Your only alternative, if you're not comfortable with this sort of situation, is to just avoid the trade economy altogether and go to SSF. If you're playing SSF, you will never have to deal with this, right? Because you're only dealing with the game. But if you want to play trade, you have to deal with the trade economy, and you deal with other people in the trade economy. And if you want to beat other people in the trade economy, you have to invest. You have to figure out you have to be able to value items, and you have to be able to figure out where the item valuations will go to in the next week or the weeks after. You have to be able to read the market, and you also have to be able to figure out what are strong items before other people realize that they're strong. Well, hope you guys understand some of these concepts. If you do have any questions, do let me know. And as with real life, put your money into something put your money in the market, right? Pick companies you think generate value, that you believe in, and then just same thing. All right, see you guys. I'm out. Bye.